Hello and welcome back to Crypto Saving Experts, where we talk about the latest cryptocurrency news and take a look at the markets so that we all know exactly what is happening. My name is Jess and we do these live streams every single weekday. So if you are new around here, please don't forget to give us a like and give us a subscribe and press that bell notification button as well so you don't miss the latest cryptocurrency news. Let's take a look at what is going on in terms of the markets. We have Bitcoin currently sat at $25,930, down 0.7% in the last 24 hours, and Ethereum down $1,000 to $1,741, down by 1.6%. Now, we did see that positive move in terms of inflation rates in the US yesterday. It did come in lower than expected, and we are now only 2% away from that target of a 2% year on year. So we are down to 4% lower than expected, but the markets didn't really act in the way that I wanted them to. This was really positive news. Now, we are finding out the interest rates today, and because inflation is continuing to decline, this is a positive side, that we may start to see a pause in the interest rates, and the likelihood of that has increased since this inflation data was announced. Now, if we have a higher probability of interest rates staying the same instead of increasing, then that should be a good thing for the markets. Typically, the markets like to see that. The markets hate high interest rates, but we did see a small move to the upside off the back of this news, and it got retraced pretty quickly, and we are now at lower levels than before that inflation data was announced. So Bitcoin has moved to the downside slightly in the last 24 hours. Not exactly what we wanted to see, but we have a huge amount of news to discuss today. We will get onto those interest rates and talk about that in a little bit more detail. We'll be looking at that. We'll be looking at the documents from the XRP and Ripple case. We'll be taking a look at Binance and what's going on there. We have loads of major stories today. Like, it has been non-stop in the last 24 hours. So if you are interested in staying up to date with what's going on in crypto, make sure to like, subscribe, hit the bell notification button. We are also streaming to Twitter right now as well. If you are over on Twitter, follow along. Make sure to come over to YouTube as well, because YouTube is where we do these live streams every single day. I've just got my coffee ready because we've got a big morning ahead of us. Have a little sip. If you are new here, also please don't forget to go to Crypto Saving Experts on TikTok. We have just reached 794 followers over on TikTok. So we are trying to get to that 1,000 follower mark on TikTok. Then we can live stream over there as well. So we are currently live streaming to YouTube, Twitter, and Binance Live, hopefully TikTok soon, hopefully Instagram soon. We'll be spreading across all of the platforms, trying to spread the latest cryptocurrency news and keeping the positivity during the doom days of crypto. Let's take a look at what is in store here today. Let's get straight into it. So we are going to be talking first of all about Binance.us. So let's get up to date with this. Let's make sure everything is running smoothly. So we have here Binance.us legal team includes former SEC director. So in response to the SEC legal attack, Binance.us has assembled a top team of attorneys, including a former co-director of the SEC's Division of Enforcement. So they've put together a strong team here, trying to fight back against these accusations that have been made by the SEC. We all know exactly what's going on here. Binance have been sued by the SEC. They've been accused of offering unregistered securities and all of that malarkey. And they've also been accused of offering of additional things that haven't been in the filings against Coinbase. They've been accused of letting US customers get access to Binance.com instead of Binance.us. They've been accused of not having their funds completely separate and not being completely independent companies. So they've now created a legal team that are going to fight against these accusations. We've got more articles following along on the same story, so let's quickly move over to the next one. We have Binance.us reaches compromise with SEC to maintain sole possession of user assets. Now, the SEC were trying to freeze Binance US's assets, and Binance US said, look, if you do that, the whole business is over. So we can see here, Binance US sought the court's permission to continue paying employees and handling operation costs as part of the agreement. So this is a positive thing for Binance.us here. The courts have come onto their side and understood that this is just something that shouldn't happen right now, and there's no evidence to suggest that such a strict thing should take place. So we can see here, according to the filing with the US District Court of the District of Columbia. The SEC wants Binance US to transfer all user assets to new wallets with new private keys handled by only employees in the US. And the agency insists that non-US third parties like the offshore Binance entity and founder CZ should have no control or access to the private keys and assets. Now, the arrangement comes a week after the SEC filed a motion seeking a temporary restraining order to freeze Binance.US assets, and the commission insisted that freezing the assets was necessary to prevent the destruction or alteration of records pertaining to an ongoing lawsuit against the exchange. Now, as I've just said, Binance.US have opposed that request, and they have now come to some sort of agreement where Binance can continue moving forwards with that, and that is really important here. Let's take a look at the next one here. We are still on the same story here. So Binance CEO denies rumors of exchange selling Bitcoin to save BNB. So there were rumors that this was something that was going on, helping prop up the price of Bitcoin. Now, CZ has actually tweeted that this is not true. In fact, we still hold FTT, the token for FTX exchange. So he's responded to this in a tweet. Binance have not sold Bitcoin or BNB. We even still have a bag of FTT. It is amazing they know exactly who sold based on just a price chart involving millions of traders. FUD. So a little bit of sarcasm there from CZ. At the time of writing, Bitcoin was trading at $246. Let's take a look at what it's trading at right now. So if we go to the cryptosavingexpert.com website, the best cryptocurrency website out there, and you go to the markets tab up here, all you need to do is scroll down, choose BNB, and we can get lots of information on this token. You can see here on the daily chart, it has had a little bit of a nice rebound here. Now, we do have, as we were discussing in yesterday's video, a level of support here at $220. We've used this as a level of support back in December 22 and in May 22 as well. So we do have some sort of support there and continuing to hold strong. We were inside this ascending wedge for a while, which has a high probability of breaking to the downside. That is exactly what happened. We have now come down and hit that price target for that ascending wedge. So we are now seeing a little bit of a bounce following this news that this is all FUD and Binance haven't been sending their own token. Let's take a look at the next article here and see what else is going on in today's news. Don't forget, if you haven't already, to like and subscribe and hit that bell notification button. And also don't forget to drop a comment in the chat. It all helps the algorithm. The more the algorithm pushes, the more we get shown to more people. The more people that see our live streams, the more we might help people understand cryptocurrency a little bit better. And we may even drive cryptocurrency adoption, which is exactly what all of our goals should be. Also, we are on a mission to get to 100,000 subscribers here on YouTube. So if you are watching on any other platform, make sure to come over to our YouTube channel, Crypto Saving Expert, and give us a subscribe to us, because we would very much appreciate it. Let's take a look at what else is going on here. So the US Department of Justice might have filed a sealed criminal right, this is the word I always get mixed up. Indictment against Binance former SEC chair. So the SEC former chief of internet enforcement believes that the US Department of Justice will file, or has already filed under a seal, a Binance-related criminal indictment. So let's take a look at this. I'm just not going to say it anymore. The SEC charges against Binance have raised new questions on whether the exchange, its founder and CEO CZ, and its US units will face possible criminal charges related to money laundering. Now let's get down to the nitty-gritty of this article here. So we can see money laundering involves disguising financial assets so they can be used without detection of the illegal activity that produced them. To me, the CFTC and SEC complaints read more like criminal indictments replete with allegations of fraud, deception, obstruction of justice, and money laundering. So neither the CFTC or SEC case intensely focus on money laundering. In my honest opinion, that is a prosecutorial space that has been carved out and reserved for a US Department of Justice criminal prosecution relating to Binance. So the question of money laundering lingers for Binance. Now, this is because essentially people could withdraw up to 2 Bitcoin from Binance without providing KYC, undergoing KYC procedures, providing their private identity, giving a photograph of their driver's license, their passport, and giving their address and more personal information. And so as a result, the crypto exchange allowed users to bypass well-organized international anti-money laundering restrictions and disclosures. So there is this discussion now as to whether The US Department of Justice might have filed a sealed criminal indictment against Binance already, or there is one to come. So we can take a look further into this article. The Commodity Futures Trading Commission's complaint against Binance and CZ, the former chief compliance officer, accuses the three of assisting customers in circumventing compliance controls and setting up offshore accounts to bypass the exchange's KYC procedures. So therefore, there is a likelihood that Binance and its CEO could soon face criminal charges in the US for failing to institute standard anti-money laundering procedures and additional compliance measures to prevent illicit financial activities at the exchange. So what's going on here is we're seeing all of these charges from the SEC, and we're looking at this and we're saying that it looks like they're accusing us of more, but this is something that the Department of Justice could be taking over. So this is something still to come, or something that is sealed, so something that is not let out to the public just yet. So this is the main story with Binance right now, and we are going to keep a close eye on this. But next, we need to take a look at what's going on with Ripple and the SEC. Now, I know a lot of us have been holding on, waiting for this news for a long period of time now. So I want to quickly discuss this. Let's start right from the beginning. So I've put here the Howey test. So this is, I'm not going to try and write out Howey test completely. You can see here, a Howey test, it determines whether an asset is a security or a commodity. This was created in 1946. And this means that if an investment of money in a common enterprise with the expectation of profit or to be derived from the effort of others, that means the asset is a security. So if these four conditions are met, that means the asset is a security. If all four of these conditions aren't met, or even one of these conditions aren't met, that means it is a commodity. Now that is the big difference we've got there, and the thing that we've been fighting for in cryptocurrency is clarity, because this was created in 1946. We'd have no clarity over how to regulate digital assets. Now there's been discussions of mergers, so assets changing from being a security to being a commodity. Now there's discussion of mergers the opposite way, from going from a commodity to a security. This is all in the documents. These documents are documents that the SEC did not want to be made public, but Ripple fought for this, and the courts have revealed these documents to the public so we can understand these in a little bit more detail. They do refer to the Howey test throughout, so I wanted to make that exactly clear. This is the Howey test. If all four of these conditions are met, it's a security. If one of these are not met, it is no longer a security. If it's a security, it's regulated by the SEC, the Securities Exchange Commission, and if it's not, it's regulated by the CFTC. They regulate commodities. So that's the big difference here. And what we really want to know at this point in time is, are these assets to be regulated by the SEC or not? Are they securities or are they not? So we can see here that the Hinman documents show Vitalik Buterin took part in the process leading to the infamous speech. So we all know that there was a speech a very long time ago now. Let's take a look at this, where it was said that we still have reservations about including a statement directly about Ether in the speech. Let's start this article from the beginning. I've just jumped straight into the middle of it. So on Tuesday, the SEC released the Hinman documents. It's the former director of the SEC's Division of Corporate Finance. The papers revealed that Ethereum's co-founder Vitalik Buterin was involved leading up to the Hinman speech in 2018. Now, Hinman noted that Ether does not qualify as a security in the infamous speech. We now know that Vitalik was involved and in discussions with them prior to this speech. Now, there is questions about whether Vitalik had any persuasion into them classifying Ethereum as a commodity during this time, or whether his involvement was just to clarify and clear things up. So we can see here the papers show that Hinman ignored several warnings about his speech and maintained no requirement to regulate Ether as a security. Despite this, he did not understand how Ethereum operated at the time. So did Buterin influence the outcome of Hinman's speech? Before the speech, Hinman planned to have a call with Buterin later this week to confirm our understanding of how the Ethereum Foundation operates. The disclosure also provoked the ire of the XRP community, amid a tweet by Buterin in December 22, in which the Ethereum co-founder slammed the Ripple team for claiming that XRP A shitcoin, according to Buterin, was not security based on Hinman's speech on Ether, even though he had the opportunity to comment this on the same of Ethereum. So let's take a little bit of a deeper dive onto the documents now and see what has actually been revealed in the last 24 hours. So first of all, I've pulled up this tweet here, and this is the summary that we've got here. So not a big impact on the XRP case, and that's the first thing that we should mention. It's not had a massive impact here. We did see XRP rise slightly. So if we go to the markets tab on cryptosavingexpert.com and we go to this XRP tab here, you can see that XRP has had a move to the upside following these documents being released, but not massively, to be honest. There was a small rise, and it all has been retraced here. So let's take a look at this. Not a massive impact on the XRP case, not a massive impact on XRP token. We can see here that it's decently positive for Ethereum, and it's a nuance it puts Gensler in a corner. So first of all, we are talking about, let's discuss first of all, we are looking at getting Gary Gensler removed from the SEC. This isn't completely in this article here, but what we have seen in the last couple of days is that we've had draft bills removing Gary Gensler from the SEC and removing just having one person at the top of the SEC, and instead creating a board who can all cast their votes and make decisions as a collection. And that would just be so much better, because it seems right now a lot of people that have a high profile in the cryptocurrency industry are under the opinion that Gary Gensler's views are not the same as everybody else's. And we can see here that this actually might have a positive effect on these cases with Binance and with Coinbase, because the courts might see that it seems that all of these decisions are being made by one person, by Gary Gensler, and we're seeing other people creating draft bills and trying to step in and change how this all works, because it just is not making sense. If we take a look here, we can see here that, let's skip past all of this. Well, let's skim through it all quickly here. So number 2 is that this, obviously, the Hinman speech was said at a time when Ethereum was proof of work. Now, obviously, we also have seen that it's had the merge now. We have moved to proof of stake, but it is, all of this information is still important. So first of all, Hinman planned to actually talk about the morphing idea, which is where a token transfers from being a security to being a commodity. Now, that was all changed during the preparation for this speech, but there was still conversation about this. So the feedback comment from the SEC staff about the section where he talked about morphing was that they wanted to pivot the discussion of what is a security rather than the idea of morphing. So they didn't like this idea, first of all. Now, we will come back to this point in just a second. The Hinman points out something Gensler has seemingly forgot. In Howie, Orange Groves did not become a security, even though the sale of the future of profits of those were. So let's talk about this. What this is saying is that when we determined whether an asset was a security or not with the Orange Groves, this wasn't that the Orange Groves were a security. It wasn't that the oranges were the security. It was the sale of future profits which became the security. It's the contracts for the sales that became the security. Now, this is an interesting conversation. Does this mean that Bitcoin, Ethereum, Ripple, all of these different tokens aren't securities? The assets themselves aren't the securities, but the derivative contracts and the sale of these tokens are what could classify as a security? That's a big question that's now being raised. That's an interesting topic to talk about as well. Now, let's continue with this and see what else we see here. So the digital asset itself is simply code, and that's a very important statement to make, just like I've just said. It is the way it's sold, which is the investment contracts, the derivative contracts, that can be a security, and that's similar to the Orange Groves there. So let's take a look, continue down this list. So then we have the draft Ethereum piece where after meeting with Vitalik and his lawyers, Hinman held the view that Ethereum was not as such a security at that time. So this is saying Ethereum isn't a security at that time. Now, we have spoke about the merge before. We've said it could tokens could possibly transition from being a security to being a commodity. Now, we have heard from Gary Gensler, I've pulled this up somewhere here, back in his times of being a graduate MIT course professor, saying that Ethereum was not a security. This video, many others have gone viral. We then did hear from Gary Gensler that he believes that the Ethereum is not a security in 2008. Here's the headlines for this. We then did see that he refused to answer the question earlier this year as to whether Ethereum is a security or not. So if he's now doubting those comments that he made earlier, does this mean that we think that they can also unmerge and transfer back from, they can go from being a security to a commodity to a security to a commodity. And that honestly just gets even more confusing. I mean, it's making us ask a lot of questions here. So let's continue with this and see what else we've got here. So let's continue down here. That footnote is of incredible importance as it notes the SEC at the time internally viewed secondary sales not as sales of the promoter. So we need to talk about this. We will come back to this in just a second. This is further on in the thread. So another interesting point from the SEC notes was actually the more challenging analysis related to Bitcoin. While they didn't want to call Bitcoin a security, a large part of their analysis on why Ethereum is a security was its practical use as a gas, which Bitcoin lacked. So they do not want to call Bitcoin a security within this, but they want to work out how they can continue to push for Ethereum. So we can see here, the SEC internal staff were concerned that taking a position in the speech would not be the right approach, something that Gensler has no trouble doing on CNBC, very well pointed out, and suggested that formal statements could be made separately, but they never were. So let's continue down, let's get to the good stuff of this. So where does this leave us? With really just a statement that Ethereum is currently offered is not a security, isn't exactly a smoking gun. So why did the current SEC want to block this so badly? Because it paints them in a corner. The SEC knows that the morphing argument has some quasi-valid grounds because of the non-transitive property of an IC to the underlying asset, so something could start as a security and become not one. Now, Gary Gensler does not want to hear this. We can also see here if the SEC wanted to argue that Ethereum is a security today, the release of this document shows that at one point in time they thought it wasn't, and then we get to the point of reverse morphing, meaning that an asset can go from security to commodity to security. Let's continue with this. Even worse, they are doing that upon secondary sales, as the Ethereum Foundation is no longer selling Ethereum to you directly in an offering and is not a fundamental developer of Ethereum. So if the SEC wanted to make that case, they must acknowledge the idea of morphing, prove the burden of a promoter being liable for all secondary sales of an asset ever, and break every precedent of horizontal and vertical commonality. So we can see here, for Gary to conclude that proof of stake Ethereum is a security, he would both need to fight a landslide of precedent on the most litigated part of Howey analysis and admits the idea that security status can change over time with decentralization. So being able to have that change between a commodity and a security over and over again just really opens a can of worms here. So the question here is, can security status morph over time with decentralization, or are security analysis immutable with commonality only bound by the primary sale of the promotion of the secondary sale? So they're the big questions there, and there has been more questions being asked following these documents being released. It hasn't been an easy, straightforward win for us, but these are the debates to be had, and although these questions are all surrounding Ethereum, it's still a really important debate. These questions that have been raised, that's a big thing for the cryptocurrency industry. Maybe this isn't a big win for Ripple, but we can see here the comment that's been made here. I think Ripple's lawyers knew what lay in that nonce, and that they just threw this entire industry a bone, and for that I applaud them. That is definitely something I agree with. They're trying to make steps forward for the entire cryptocurrency industry, not for themselves, and really what's come from these emails is positive things for Ethereum here. So we can continue here. We can see we've got in another tweet, the SEC is allegedly a regulator charged with protecting the integrity of markets, and this includes protecting investors from scams, conmen, misinformation, etc. It includes policing insider trading. So whatever you think of Hinman emails and Ripple's chances of winning, losing, I think we can all agree SEC's policy, tactics, everything on crypto has been an absolute mess, even before Gensler inviting arbitrary application of law through nebulous morphing non-guidance. What we are all still fighting for here is clear rules on the road to operate. We've said this over and over again. We need clarity. We need regulation to be clear so people can follow it. Now, the main points I wanted to pull out from this tweet is here, if you want to be seen as legitimate, you need to have clear rules that people can follow. Doing things secretly and privately and never giving actual guidance is the definition of the environment in which corruption and misdeeds thrive. So this is pointing out the importance of this. Now, the cryptocurrency industry is often seen as the Wild West. It's often seen as this unregulated mess, and we are not wanting that to be this industry. We want this industry to grow. We want it to grow correctly. We want people to have good perceptions of the industry. We don't want people to see it as this big mess where people are trying to fight against the regulators all the time. We want the regulators to work with us. We don't want this old piece of Howey test from the 1946. It infuriates me every single day when we get on these live streams. So let's take a look at this. So we've got proof from the Hinman emails of what we've been saying to the Third Circuit, to Congress and to the SEC itself. The securities laws are incomplete when it comes to digital assets. Securities laws aren't meant to rule over all digital assets, and that many digital assets are not securities. And this is a snippet from the emails that have been released in the last couple of hours. So we can see here, while we agree that a central purpose of the Securities Act is to address an information asymmetry, I think we worry that it does not follow that there is no longer an asymmetry once a network becomes decentralized. There's likely are still people who have far more information. In fact, disclosure is likely to still be important to purchasers. But the bigger point is that there is no longer an investment contract once there is no efforts of others to point to. Plus, without a group in control, there's no one to hold responsible for providing this disclosure. The fact that tokens on a sufficiently decentralized network are no longer securities and no longer are required to register, with all the benefits to investors of registration, seems to point out what might be considered the regulatory gap that exists in this space. So in other words, this speech acknowledged there is an other category. It's not a security because there's no controlling group, yet like many other things, there may need for regulation to protect purchasers. So there has been pointed out there's a regulatory gap here. So that's a really important point to make out as well. Now, before we continue with today's stream, please don't forget to like, subscribe, hit the bell notification button if you are following along on Twitter, if you are following along on Binance Live. Make sure to come over to our YouTube channel at Crypto Saving Expert. Give us a like, give us a follow, help us grow the channel as much as possible. Every single time you like, every single time you comment, every single time you subscribe, you help us in the algorithm. You push the stream out to more viewers, and the more people that watch these streams, hopefully the more we can drive cryptocurrency adoption, and we can teach people about the space as much as possible. We are on a mission to get to 100,000 subscribers by the end of the year here on the channel, and we are going to do these live streams every single day until we get there. So please make sure to follow us along. We've been doing these live streams now since back at the end of November last year. So it's been like 6-7 months right now where we've been doing these live streams. We've not missed a day, and we are not going to miss a day until we get to 100,000 subscribers. So please help us along on that mission. I'd like a day off soon. Let me have some of my coffee and then we'll continue on with these stories. There's a lot more to come in today's news. We've had a jam-packed 24 hours. It's not been a quiet week in crypto. Neither was last week. I don't know when we're going to be able to catch a break here, but it's been an interesting one. I love the volatility and I love the excitement of the space right now. It seems to have caught a lot of people's attention. Lord Spud says in the chat, great live stream. If you're reading this, you are going to make it. I mean, hopefully so. The people that are here throughout these turbulent times, at these points in which everybody thinks cryptocurrency is gone forever, is the point where people can make a huge amount of money. Now, it's not easy. It is difficult. It's hard to stay around in these times. I mean, I was looking back at November, December. It wasn't easy to be involved in the cryptocurrency space heavily at that time. A lot of people were bearish. The sentiment was bearish. Crypto Twitter was so negative. Everybody was just doom and gloom all the time. And we always look back at those periods of time and say, look, if you were at that in the markets at that time, you're lucky. Now, that is not true. Staying in the markets during the horrible times when the markets are all negative is a hard thing to do. And those that do survive throughout that time and make it to the next bull market have historically been the ones to make a lot of money. Let's take a look at this article anyway. Let's move on with today's news. So we've got Polygon Labs aims to build the value layer of the internet with Polygon 2.0. So Polygon Labs, the platform developer behind the Ethereum scaling solution Polygon, announced on Monday the imminent release of multiple project updates dubbed Polygon 2.0, a network upgrade that aims to serve as a template for developing what they call the value layer of the internet. So if you want to take a look more at this and how this is going to work, make sure to go to cryptosavingexpert.com so we can see here the value layer. Ethereum presented the value layer concept initially. It demonstrated that people could create, share, and program value without intermediaries. However, Ethereum and the crypto ecosystem do not resemble the rest of the internet. The internet as we know it can be infinitely scalable, and Ethereum is not. The internet information is unified, meaning they have information exists in a shared environment that can be accessed everywhere. everywhere. So individual blockchains are not eternally scalable. They have hard constraints on throughput, and blockchains have constantly increased capacity by establishing new chains, but only at the expense of fragmenting liquidity, lowering security, and capital efficiency. So Polygon 2.0 is a network of layer 2 chains powered by ZK linked together by a revolutionary cross-chain coordination protocol, and the entire network will appear to be a single chain for the user. The network can accommodate almost infinite chains, and cross-chain interactions are safe and instantaneous, requiring no additional security, trust assumptions, unrestricted scalability, and centralized liquidity. So this is a really interesting progress made by Polygon. So if you are interested in that, I'll put the link to this in today's live chat there for you guys as well if you want to take a look at that. But let's take a look at the next one here. So Atomic Wallet hackers launched a stolen $35 million on OFAC-sanctioned crypto exchange. Now, Atomic Wallet was one of those wallets that just seems so safe in this row. We always say you need to keep your cryptocurrency secure. Now, Atomic Wallet was a decentralized self-custody wallet, but when we are using cryptocurrencies, we're still trusting the code that we are putting our wallets, our funds into. We do need to be incredibly careful. We need to diversify. We can't trust one source with everything because we all know things can go wrong. This has been a prime example of that. FTX was a prime example of that. We just need to be incredibly careful. But we have now seen that the hackers have laundered the stolen $35 million on OFAC sanctioned crypto exchange, and we are going to see more news about this, I imagine, in the weeks to come. So we have seen North Korean hackers find alternatives to launder funds. If you want to hear more about this, if you were unfortunately a subject, I don't know what the word I'm looking for is. If this hack did affect you and you want to know more information about this, make sure to go to cryptosavingexpert.com. Let's take a look at the next one. The CEO of defunct crypto exchange ThodeX denies involvement in $2.7 billion fraud. So this was a Turkish crypto exchange, and they've claimed innocence in a massive fraud leading to billions of dollars of lost customer funds. Now, unfortunately, we do see things like this quite frequently in cryptocurrency, and this is what we are trying to get rid of. We are new into the industry. It's a new space, and when we're in a new space, there's always things like this going on, unfortunately. But let's take a look anyway at the next piece of news. Have we got more news here? We need to talk about the interest rates. So Nelson has literally just put in the chat that second, will Fed raise interest rates? Now we are going to talk about this in detail right now, and this is going to have an impact on the price of Bitcoin today. So we need to talk about this right now and get this right. So the interest rate is announced at 6 p.m. UTC time tonight. So what's happened is essentially the inflation rate in the US reached up to 9.1% in June 2022 year on year. So that's from June 2021 to June 2022. And the US said, look, we need to solve this problem. We need to increase interest rates in order to drop that inflation rate. Inflation was at 9.1 and they wanted to get that down to 2%. And then yesterday we heard that inflation had dropped to 4%. So we have seen that nice move to the downside, and that was actually lower than expected. We are now only 2% away from that target of 2% inflation in the US. Now let's quickly talk about how these two rates are related. So when inflation rates are high, we need to kind of stop people spending. We need to stop the growth of the economy. To do that, we increase interest rates. When interest rates are increased, people don't want to take out as many loans. People want to try and restrict their spending, and therefore the amount of spending declines, and therefore inflation declines because that demand starts to decline when people have less money. People are taking out less loans. And so that's how interest and inflation is related. So we've seen the interest rates hike and hike and hike, and we've seen inflation start to decline as a result of that. Now that's a really positive thing in terms of its effect on inflation. However, when the interest rates hike, the markets don't like it. If people are spending less money, if people are taking out less loans, people are investing less money into the stock market, into commodities, into digital assets, especially cryptocurrencies, in fact, because people are looking at less risky assets to invest in if they've got less money. So what we've seen here is, although the higher interest rates have started to made the inflation rates move to the downside, we have seen them also negatively impact the markets. So there's two effects to this. We can't just see this great move to the downside. Let's take a look at, I'll take a look at the chart in just a second. So we have seen the interest rates increase. We've seen the inflation come to the downside. Now the question is, what's the next move? Are the interest rates going to continue to increase until we get down to that 2% mark for inflation? or are we going to see that interest rate pause? So let's take a look at this article here. Now, until yesterday, we didn't know what we found out about the inflation rate yesterday. Prior to that inflation rate announcement, there was a probability of 73.5% that there would be no change to the interest rates today. But now, since the inflation rate has been announced, that probability has increased, and it's increased all the way. Let's see where we are in this article. Let's find out where it is. It's somewhere within this article to 95.3%. There's now 95.3% probability that the interest rate is going to stay the same. And we will be talking about the effect this has had on the or could have on the price of Bitcoin in just a second. But you can see here. Let's get on to that now, actually. So the potential effects on Bitcoin. Inflation was lower than expected yesterday. Really positive thing. This should have been a bullish thing for the markets, really, because this made it be a higher probability that that the interest rate was going to stay the same today. We did see a little flick to the upside, but then it was retraced pretty quickly. Now, this is the key point. I would say interest rates have a much bigger effect on the markets than inflation, because the inflation is just kind of a pointer at what the interest rate change could be. Now that we have a 95% probability that interest rates are going to stay the same, I would say this is probably pretty likely already priced into Bitcoin. So we can take a look at this. If the Fed decide that there's no change on interest rates and it's staying the same, that would be as expected. And in that scenario, we could expect a little bit of fluctuation. It's a positive thing for the markets that these interest rates have stopped. Interest rate hikes have stopped. However, I do believe that could already be priced in. Now, if they do decide to continue increasing interest rates one more time, two more times, we could start to see Bitcoin move to the downside here, because that would be worse than what is expected. So that is pointed out within this article. We will be doing some Bitcoin analysis in just a second. The third scenario is that they drop interest rates. Now, I think this is incredibly unlikely. So we can take a look at this. Where is this in the article? I don't think this is even mentioned in the article. It's very unlikely that interest rates decline. If they do, it would be incredibly, incredibly bullish. I mean, pausing them would be bullish for the markets, but I just believe this could already be priced in. It's likely these are already priced in. Let's take a look at what's going on in the chat quickly and see what is happening. So Corey said, I was watching a video that explained a security, and it said that if the token is used as a payment for gas, then it wouldn't be, and that a security is essentially when there is a contract for profit. He went on to say that the story about the orange field as security was because they invested into the orange field with the expectation that they will profit from owning a portion of the grove. So this is where we have the lack of clarity. Now, obviously, the Howey test was created in 1946, and that was created around assets that existed in that time, like you say, for the orange grove. And then what was actually the security wasn't the orange grove, it was the security, the contracts to sell those orange groves in the future. And this is what we're talking about today. Is Bitcoin a security, or are the contracts to sell Bitcoin the security, the derivative contracts, the perpetual contracts? And that's what we have been discussing in today's stream. We have already gone through these conversations today, so rewind a little bit if you haven't watched all of today's stream. What were the other points that you mentioned today? Talking about the gas fees, yeah, there was a bit of debate in that on the comments for Hinman's speech and the responses from the SEC staff at the time. They were debating whether they could use the gas fees as an argument, because they are aware that that isn't an argument they could make for Bitcoin, and they didn't want to classify Bitcoin as a security. We've been through this today in today's stream, so rewind a little bit if you have missed this, but you are making some very interesting points there in the chat. Read through the chat if you haven't already, those that are watching. Let's see what JB says. Hit the likes button to moon Bitcoin. 100% agree. If you want Bitcoin to go up today, make sure to smack the like button. And if you want the dollar to go to zero, I mean, we can't vouch for this, can we? We don't really want all of our fiat currencies to completely fall off the face of the earth. It would be a hard time for us all. Let's see what else is going on in the price of Bitcoin. Let's analyze the price now and see what's happening here. So the price is still in a downtrend. We have seen lower highs and lower lows. So let's take a look at this. We were in a descending wedge. Let's draw this back on the charts today. So we can see here, if we take the highs and we draw this line across there, and we take the lows and we draw this line across here, you can see we're in a descending wedge. A descending wedge has a higher probability of breaking to the upside than to the downside. So therefore, we might not be in for too bad of a ride here, but we do need to keep an eye on what's going on here. All of this regulation is causing a big mess for crypto. If we add in the simple moving average here, I want to add in the 200-week moving average. And we've got lots of moving averages now. Let's get rid of all of these and just take a look at the 200-week one. So if we go to inputs, in fact, I don't think this indicator is going to let us. These indicators on TradingView are not, I feel like simple moving average is something that they should make a lot easier on here. If anybody can make an indicator there for me very quickly. Let's go on to MACD here. So what we can see here is that RSI is looking pretty neutral. MACD is looking pretty neutral on the daily chart. On the 4-hour chart, the exact same. Not really seeing much movement on the 2-hour chart, even more. We are in the smaller time frames. We've seen a lot of sideways action here. On the bigger time frames, we are in that descending wedge, waiting to see some movement, to see what is really happening here. I would always like to point out here that we have a massive level of previous resistance at $25,150, and this actually also goes down to, let's zoom in a little bit closer here. This is more of a zone here, I would say, all the way down to $24,433. That range has acted like a resistance in the past, back in August 22 and February 23. And we are coming back down to that. If we retest that zone and use that as a level of support, it could be really bullish for the price of Bitcoin right there. But that is all we really have for today's stream. I've got to go and jump onto a call with Crypto Saving Expert and the team. So if you have enjoyed today's stream, please don't forget to like, subscribe, and press the bell notification button. Also, make sure to go over to our TikTok at Crypto Saving Expert. Give us a follow, give us a like, watch some of those videos, help us get to 1,000 followers over on TikTok so that we can put these live streams out on that platform as well. We would greatly appreciate it. And also, don't forget to follow us on Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, on the website itself. Make sure to go to cryptosavingexpert.com. This is the most important one. Press that big blue sign up button, create an account, tick that box, press sign up, bish bash bosh, all done. That is all we have for today. Thank you very much for watching, and I will see you all again.